The night the signal arrived was quiet, the kind of quiet that happens only in the desert after midnight. The stars hung above the world like small white fires, steady and calm. Inside a lonely monitoring station in Arizona, a man named Collins sat in front of a large screen, sipping cold coffee and fighting the urge to fall asleep. Most nights passed without anything interesting. The systems beeped, the satellites hummed, and the world kept spinning. But that night, something changed. It happened softly at first. A strange pulse appeared on one of the displays, a tiny spike, so small that Collins almost ignored it. Then it came again, clearer, sharper, repeating like a heartbeat. He leaned forward, frowning. The equipment was old, but not old enough to create this pattern by mistake. He checked the calibration, rebooted a sensor, and even tapped the side of the monitor, hoping it was just another glitch. But the pattern didn't go away. It grew steadier, as if the source knew it was finally being heard. A pulse. A pause. Another pulse. Collins hesitated, then opened the emergency line to the main analysis center. His voice shook slightly as he reported the anomaly, and even he didn't understand why he suddenly felt nervous. It was just a signal, nothing more. Yet something inside him whispered that this was different. This was not the kind of noise that space usually made. Within an hour, the small desert station filled with activity. Specialists from different departments took their seats, checking readings, running simulations, and comparing the signal to known patterns. The room buzzed with low voices and quick typing. And still, the pulse continued, patient and repeating, as though it was trying to speak in a language older than words. At that moment, in a different part of the country, a woman named Helena received a message that made her stop what she was doing. She had once been one of the most respected voices in astrophysics, known for her unique ideas about emotional frequencies in cosmic transmissions. But her theories had been dismissed as imaginative rather than scientific, and over time she had stepped back from the spotlight. She preferred quiet research and long hours, alone with her equipment instead of dealing with people who laughed at her ideas. The message she received was short. "We need your analysis immediately." Attached was a portion of the strange signal. When Helena played the audio file, she froze. It wasn't just the sound that surprised her, it was the feeling it carried. Different people heard different things in the universe's background noise, but she heard something like fear woven into the rhythm. It was faint, like someone calling out from a great distance. But the emotional weight was unmistakable. She packed her bags without hesitation. By the time she arrived at the monitoring center, the signal had taken over every screen. Experts argued in groups, pointing at waveforms and maps. Some thought the signal was a natural phenomenon. Others believed it came from a malfunctioning satellite. Everyone had a theory, but no one had proof. Helena stepped inside quietly, unnoticed at first. Then the director saw her and hurried over, relief covering his face. They led her to the main console and played the signal again, this time with layers separated for deeper study. The room fell silent as she leaned closer to the screen. Helena didn't speak right away. Instead, she listened. She had always been careful, slow, to claim something extraordinary. But as the minutes passed, her expression changed, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "This isn't random," she finally said. "This is intentional." Several people reacted at once, some concerned, others irritated. Intentional signals from space meant only one thing, and nobody wanted to jump to conclusions. The director asked her to explain. Helena pointed to the repeated pulses. "There's structure. There's rhythm. And here," she zoomed in, "these faint variations aren't errors. They're emotional imprints." A young analyst frowned. "Emotional? Signals don't have emotions." Helena shook her head gently. "Not unless they were encoded that way." Confusion filled the room. She knew her explanation sounded unusual, maybe even unbelievable. But she also knew she was right. Some civilizations, if they exist, might not send messages the way we do. They might embed feelings along with the information. It's a more universal form of communication. Emotion is older than language. The director folded his arms. And what emotion do you hear? Helena hesitated, not because she was unsure, but because she understood the weight her answer carried. Fear, she said softly. And urgency. Someone is calling for help. A hush fell over the room as everyone processed her words. Across the next several hours, the team worked nonstop. More data poured in from detectors around the world, satellites, radio telescopes, even weather monitoring stations that accidentally caught fragments of the strange pulse. The more they studied it, the clearer it became that the signal was not weakening. It was growing stronger, as if it sensed that it was finally being understood. Helena sat in the back of the room, listening over and over again. Her heart felt heavy. There was something deeper inside the signal, something she had not mentioned yet. The emotion embedded in it did not feel entirely alien. It felt familiar somehow, like a warning meant not just for another species, but for anyone capable of hearing it late into the night. A breakthrough occurred. A pattern hidden behind the pulses was decoded, revealing a message, not in words, but in images and sensations. The analysts leaned closer as the computer reconstructed a simple sequence. It showed a symbol that resembled a star surrounded by darkness. Then another symbol, like small points of light being swallowed by a spreading shadow. Helena closed her eyes tightly. She understood what the images represented, a danger moving across space, destroying whatever it touched. A danger that frightened the senders, enough to reach out to anyone who might listen. But there was something else in the transmission that worried her even more. She played a fragment again, isolating one faint frequency and amplifying it. Her breath caught. This part of the signal wasn't a cry for help, It was a warning directed toward Earth specifically. And it wasn't warning about something far away. It was warning about something already close. She stepped toward the director and spoke quietly. There's more you need to know. The rhythm here. I've seen it before. Where? He asked, brows knitting together. In old seismic logs, she answered. Deep-sea recordings. Cavern echoes. Natural structures on Earth have produced similar patterns in the past, but only under very specific conditions. And what conditions are those? When something old wakes up? The director stared at her, unsure how to respond. Helena continued, her voice steady but serious. This signal is not just reaching us. It's interfering with dormant frequencies on our own planet. It's stirring something here, something ancient, something that shouldn't be alive anymore. The room went silent again. One of the analysts whispered, You think the signal is activating something on Earth? I think it already has, Helena said. Her words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. It sounded impossible, yet the feeling in her chest told her it was true. Somewhere beneath the oceans, under mountains, in hidden places humanity rarely touched, something was moving. Something that should have stayed still. The world outside the monitoring station remained quiet and peaceful, unaware of what was coming. The stars still shone over the desert, calm and bright. But inside the station, every person felt a shift. Like the Earth itself was holding its breath. Helena looked again at the repeating pulse on the screen. A cry for help, echoing across light years. But it wasn't calling to humanity. It was calling to something else. Something that once answered similar cries, long before humans existed. And now, hearing the signal again, those ancient forces had begun to wake. For the first few days after the strange signal reached Earth, nothing changed on the surface. People went to work, children went to school, and life continued as usual. Only a handful of scientists knew what had happened, and most of them hoped the signal would fade away on its own. But deep inside the planet, something had already begun to shift. The change was slow at first, too small to notice. Like the faint tremble of a sleeping creature turning in its rest dot, it started in the ocean. A research team on board a vessel in the Pacific noticed unusual readings from the seafloor. The instruments showed soft vibrations patterns that didn't match earthquakes, volcanic activity, or any known natural movement. The pulses came in steady waves, almost like something buried far below was responding to the same signal the scientists in Arizona had detected. The team watched the data with confusion, unsure if it was a real phenomenon or a malfunction. One of the researchers, a calm and observant older man, leaned over the monitor and whispered, "It feels like something breathing." The others laughed nervously, but none of them could shake the feeling that something unseen was happening below them. Across the world, similar events were beginning to unfold. In a remote mountain range in South America, hikers reported hearing deep rumbling sounds from inside the cliffs. At first, park officials assumed it was normal rock movement, but then the rumbling developed a strange pattern, slow, deliberate, almost rhythmic. It reminded locals of old legends about giant beings sleeping beneath the mountains, waiting for a sign to rise again not far to the north. Scientists at an Arctic research base detected a sudden rise in temperature beneath the ice, even though the surface was still frozen solid. The ship immediately sent the footage to nearby research bases. Within hours, the information reached Helena and her team at the monitoring center. She watched the recording again and again. Each time, her expression grew more serious. The aliens who sent the signal weren't calling just anyone. They were calling protectors, beings capable of facing the darkness, destroying their world. Protectors that once lived on Earth. The next morning, a scientist at the center pointed out something in the holographic fragments, an object that looked eerily similar to the strange patterns found in old fossil records. Helena recognized it instantly. Centuries-old stones found in deep caves sometimes carried markings shaped like ancient creatures that no longer existed. Some had strange patterns carved around them, swirls, and curved lines that looked almost like writing. Scientists had never solved their meaning, but now, looking at the holographic fragments, Helena understood. Those old markings were not artwork. They were instructions. The alien civilization had encountered Earth long before humans existed. They had left behind warnings, messages, maybe even partnerships with Earth's ancient guardians. And now, with their world destroyed, the final message had reached the only place left in the universe that might be able to stop the coming danger. Earth. As Helena pieced the information together, she realized something terrifying, but also strangely hopeful. The creatures awakening across the planet, the ones stirring beneath oceans, mountains, and ice, were not random beasts. They were creations built for a purpose. Their instincts were tied to the cosmos. They were Earth's defense against cosmic threats, designed long before humans arrived. They had responded to the signal because it was familiar to them. It was a call they had answered many times in the distant past. Meanwhile, the ocean vessel reported that the glowing sphere had finally shut down completely. It floated like a lifeless metal shell, drifting aimlessly across the water. Whatever message it had been carrying, it had delivered everything it could. Back at the monitoring center, confusion and fear grew among the scientists. Some wanted to announce the findings to the world. Others insisted they needed more information before making such a bold claim. The director paced back and forth, undecided. The world had already been shaken by strange nature events, revealing something extraterrestrial would cause global panic. Helena listened quietly to the debate until she finally spoke. Her voice calm but firm. "We can't hide this," she said. "The world needs to know something is happening beneath our feet. Something that might protect us, or might not understand us at all." The room went silent. One of the senior analysts asked her gently, Do you think these creatures are dangerous? Helena took a moment before answering. I think they're powerful, she said. I think they listen to forces we can't hear. They don't follow human laws or human understanding. But I don't think they've woken to harm us. They woke because something is coming. Something they've fought before. Her words lingered in the air not long after. Global reports confirmed more strange activity. A deep-sea scanner recorded something huge moving far beneath the ocean floor, too deep for any submarine to reach. A mountain group in South America heard roaring vibrations from inside the cliffs, though no creature appeared on the surface. And in the Arctic, cracks widened, spreading across miles of ice like veins glowing with faint warmth. The world was holding its breath. Later that evening, Helena sat alone in the quiet corner of the center, reviewing the holographic fragments again. She slowed down the part where the alien world was consumed by the shadow. She watched a group of alien figures gather around a glowing object shaped like a star. They pressed their hands, or whatever they used, instead of hands against it, sending a beam of energy into the sky. It looked like a final attempt, a desperate act of warning. The signal they sent was not just a cry of fear. It was a message meant for giants, guardians, defenders built to face cosmic threats. Helena leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. Whatever destroyed their world, she whispered, is still out there. And whatever had destroyed that distant civilization was now heading toward Earth. But Earth was not helpless. Its ancient protectors were waking, answering a call older than human history, rising from oceans, mountains, and ice to face a danger humans could barely imagine. Real question wasn't whether these creatures would fight. Question was whether Earth would survive. Battle. For days the world had been feeling strange changes that no one could explain. Oceans rose and fell with slow, heavy movements. Mountains hummed with deep sounds that seemed to come from somewhere beneath the rock. Ice in the far north cracked open in long lines like something was pushing upward. People around the world felt a quiet tension in the air, like the planet itself was preparing for something. No one understood what it was, but everyone sensed the shift dot at the monitoring center in Arizona. Helena watched the global data stream across the screens. Her eyes traced the patterns again and again. Everything pointed to one truth: Earth's ancient creatures were waking up. Not one, not two, but many, all beginning to move at the same time. She had been asking herself the same question for days. Where are they going? That question was answered one morning when a seismic map revealed something extraordinary. Multiple giant signatures, each one bigger than anything humans had ever recorded, were slowly heading toward the same place. Different continents, different oceans, but one direction, a single point on the map, a dry desert valley in the middle of nowhere. Helena stared at the map as though her breath had caught in her throat. They're gathering, she whispered. The director approached her, confusion in his eyes. Gathering for what? Helena wasn't sure. She zoomed in on the location and studied the terrain. It was a quiet region, far from cities, covered in rocky hills and sand dunes. There were no military bases, no research labs, nothing special at all. At least nothing humans had discovered. They're not choosing this place, Helena said softly. They're remembering it. That simple sentence left the room silent. Across the world, sightings of strange movements increased. Fishermen in coastal towns saw huge shadows deep under the water, moving slowly and purposefully. Travelers in mountain passes felt the ground shake under their feet, followed by long echoes, like a creature stretching its limbs for the first time in centuries. In the Arctic, the ice groaned with a pressure that couldn't be explained by weather alone. These creatures were not attacking anything. They didn't seem interested in humans at all. They were simply moving, as if following instructions written into their very bones. News channels tried to report the events without causing panic. But the truth was too large to hide. People everywhere turned to their screens in fear and curiosity. Some believed it was nature reacting to climate changes. Others thought it was the start of a global disaster. But no one knew about the alien signal that had triggered all of this. Only a small team of scientists understood what was happening. And even they didn't know the full truth. Helena spent hours studying the ancient valley the creatures were heading toward. She requested old geological maps, satellite photos, and ancient ground scans. Slowly, a picture formed. The rock formations in the valley were different, older than the surrounding land, as if something massive had once rested there. The ground layers showed signs of past movement no earthquake could have made. Something had pushed the earth upward a long time ago, then gone silent. It was a gathering place, Helena said during a meeting. A meeting point for these creatures. Maybe a command center. Maybe something else. But it's not random. One of the scientists looked pale. And now they're going back? They're answering the call, Helena replied. Outside, the sky turned red with sunset. The desert wind blew quietly around the facility, making the silence even heavier. Meanwhile, far away from the monitoring center, the first creature appeared near the coast of a remote island. It didn't rise fully from the water. Only part of its form broke the surface, a massive, dark shape moving with surprising grace for something so large. The islanders watched from a distance, frozen in shock. The creature wasn't attacking anything. It simply continued on its path, moving steadily toward the open sea like a traveler on a long-forgotten journey. Some people filmed it. Some prayed. Others just stood still, not knowing what to feel. In another part of the world, a mountain trembled as loose stones rolled down its side. Deep inside the cliffs, something shifted. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the trees and making birds take off in frightened flocks. A handful of hikers heard the sound and ran, not out of fear, but instinct. The sound felt bigger than anything they could understand, yet the mountain creature didn't emerge. It moved under the earth, carving its path toward the desert valley with quiet determination. Back in Arizona, helicopters and drones were sent to survey the valley. They hovered above the area and found a surprising sight. The ground was shaking not violently, but in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. Dust rose in small clouds. Animals from nearby regions had left the area completely, as though they sensed something the machines could not. The director watched the footage with growing concern. "How do we stop them from reaching that valley?" he asked. Something under the thick layers of ice was warming up, melting its way upward with quiet determination. The researchers drilled deeper to investigate, but the sensors dropped into darkness and recorded nothing but faint echoes. Echoes that strangely matched the rhythm of the cosmic signal. No one understood the connection yet. But the world was starting to notice. In the Arizona Monitoring Center, Helena watched the global reports come in one after another. She had barely slept since the signal had been detected. Her eyes were tired, her voice softer than usual, but her mind was sharp. She studied every piece of information: ocean vibrations, mountain tremors, changes beneath the ice, and her worry grew with each passing hour. "These aren't random," she said quietly, though no one asked. "They're responses." The director approached her with a fresh set of reports and placed them in front of her. "We need your view on this," he said. "Are we dealing with natural events? Or is this something connected to the signal?" Helena didn't answer right away. She placed her hand lightly on the stack of papers and took a slow breath. Part of her wished the answer was simple. Part of her wished she was wrong. But the patterns were too clear to ignore. "These events are happening in places where the Earth has ancient structures," she explained. "Places that have been quiet for centuries. Maybe longer. And now they're waking up at the exact same time the signal arrived." The director frowned. Waking up? Yes, Helena said gently. Like something old is listening. In the next room, a young analyst ran a comparison between the cosmic pulse and the seismic vibrations from different regions of the world. When the results appeared, he called out for everyone to look. The patterns aligned almost perfectly. The rhythm from space was stirring the hidden echo inside Earth's deep places. Helena stared at the matching graphs, her heart sinking. The frequency was acting like a key, unlocking something buried in the planet's darkest corners. But what exactly was being unlocked? She didn't have a complete answer yet, but she had theories. Ancient stories from different cultures spoke of giant beings linked to the Earth itself, beings that protected or punished, depending on the tale. For centuries, those stories were treated as myths, but Helena had always wondered if they had a deeper truth behind them. Now she was certain. Something enormous, something alive, had once existed on Earth long before humans. And whatever those things were, they had been sleeping for ages. The cosmic signal, filled with emotion and urgency, was awakening them. As global sensors continued to pick up unusual readings, governments across the world grew increasingly concerned. They ordered quiet investigations, careful not to cause public panic. Underwater drones were sent into the deep, mountain teams were deployed to remote regions, and researchers were asked to examine old geological records. Yet with every new discovery, the same unsettling feeling spread among all who saw the data. Something big was coming. Meanwhile, ordinary people began noticing strange changes in nature. Birds flew in unusual patterns, sometimes gathering in the sky as if confused or frightened. Animals in forests behaved oddly, running out from trees as though fleeing from something humans couldn't see. In fishing towns along the coast, locals found groups of sea creatures drifting near the surface, not harmed, but dazed. As if disturbed by a deep sound no human ears could detect. In one small coastal village, a fisherman described waking up to a low humming sound coming from the ocean, so soft that it felt more like a vibration in his chest than a noise in the air. When he went outside, the water was completely still. Not even waves moved. The silence felt heavy, unnaturally heavy, like the ocean was holding a secret and waiting for something. The stories piled up, each adding a layer to the growing mystery. Back at the monitoring center, Helena spent her nights studying old scientific logs. Some recordings from decades ago captured strange signals from the deep sea signals that had been dismissed as mechanical errors. Now she saw them differently. Those old signals matched fragments of the current cosmic pulse. It meant the Earth had been hearing pieces of this message long before humans noticed it fully. The truth began forming in her mind, like a puzzle falling into place. The signal from space wasn't new. It had been drifting across the stars for ages, occasionally brushing against Earth. But the full signal, the complete distress call, had reached Earth only now. And the moment it did, the ancient beings hidden in the planet had reacted to it immediately, as if the signal was meant for them, not for humanity. Helena shared her findings with the director, who listened with growing concern. "If you're right," he said, "then these things, whatever they are not our enemies." "They're not," Helena agreed softly, "but they're also not under our control. They're waking up because they sense danger coming from beyond our planet." The director leaned back, rubbing his temples. "And do we know what kind of danger?" Helena looked at the repeating pulse on the main screen, the same pulse she had listened to hundreds of times. The fear in the signal still sent a cold shiver through her. "Not yet," she said. "But whatever it is, it frightened an entire civilization enough to send this message across the stars." A wave of quiet filled the room. The scientists exchanged uneasy looks. The world was facing something unknown, something far bigger than anything humans had imagined. As days passed, the disturbances grew stronger. The ocean vibrations became more frequent. The mountain tremors turned into steady rumbles. And in the Arctic, the melting inside the ice sheet expanded rapidly, forming cracks long enough to be seen from satellite images. Helena watched all the updates with a feeling she couldn't describe clearly. It wasn't fear exactly. It wasn't excitement. It was more like standing at the edge of a storm knowing it was coming, but not knowing how strong it would be. The earth felt alive in a new way, as if the ground itself was preparing for something. One evening, as the sun set behind the desert hills outside the monitoring center, Helena stepped outside to get a breath of air. The sky was calm, the air still. But somewhere deep in the distance, she felt a vibration not through her ears, but through the ground beneath her feet. It was faint, but it was there. A slow, heavy pulse, a reply. The earth was waking up. Its oldest guardians. And humanity had no idea what was about to rise. For days, the strange changes happening across the planet continued to grow. The ocean trembled with long, quiet pulses. Mountains released low rumbles that rolled through empty valleys. The ice in the far north cracked from deep within, as if something beneath it was stretching for the first time in ages. Scientists around the world collected data, but no one truly understood what was happening. The only person who felt even a small piece of the truth was Helena, and even she didn't have the full picture yet. But everything changed the night Earth made first contact with something not from this world. It happened far out at sea, where the waves spread endlessly, and the sky above blended into a sheet of stars. A small research vessel was sailing in a quiet zone, far away from shipping routes and tourist areas. The crew on board was tired and restless, but their job was important. They were tracking the same strange underwater signals that had appeared after the cosmic message reached Earth. It was close to midnight when one of the crew members spotted something unusual on the radar. A faint object moving slowly through the sky, but not following the path of any aircraft. It drifted, paused, drifted again as if confused or damaged. The crew rushed to the deck to see what it was. Above them, against the dark sky, a small glowing sphere floated quietly. It didn't make any noise, didn't flash, didn't move like a plane or satellite. It looked more like a drifting lantern, but metallic and shaped like something built with purpose. It hovered above the water for a moment, as if observing the ship, then gently descended toward the surface. The crew stood frozen, unsure whether to run or stay. But curiosity won over fear. When the object reached the water, it didn't sink. It floated, shimmering with faint blue light, moving with the waves. One of the crew members lowered a small drone into the water to get a closer look. The drone moved cautiously toward the glowing sphere and hovered beside it. A moment later, the sphere opened, not fully, just a small section at the top cracked apart, releasing a soft projection of light that spread across the surface of the ocean. The crew watched in awe as shapes formed inside the glow. They weren't words. They weren't symbols anyone recognized. They were images, memories, maybe, and they moved like fragments of a story trying to be told. The projection showed a world far different from Earth. Towers, curved like living branches. Lights floating in the air. Fields shining under a pale sky. It looked peaceful, gentle, alive. Then the images darkened. A shadow-like wave spread across the alien world, swallowing light, swallowing structures, swallowing everything it touched. The scene flickered with panic and chaos. More fragments appeared, small groups fleeing, a sky being ripped open, and a final image of a giant, dark shape blotting out the horizon. The projection ended suddenly. The sphere floated lifelessly, its glow fading. On the ship, no one spoke for a long time. The only sounds were the gentle waves tapping the hull and the faint hum of the radar. The crew didn't know what they had just seen, But they knew one thing for sure. It wasn't human. Helena shook her head gently. We can't stop them. And we shouldn't. They're not here for us. They're here because something else is coming. Still, governments around the world attempted to take action. Military vehicles drove toward the valley. Drones circled the skies. Officials tried to establish a safe zone, hoping to prepare for whatever was about to happen. But the closer the creatures came, the more obvious it became that human technology was far too small to stand in their way. One morning, a military drone captured incredible footage, a massive shape approaching the valley from the sea. It moved slowly but powerfully, leaving the water in huge rolling waves behind it. Once on land, the creature's footsteps made the ground tremble for miles. And yet, it didn't seem aggressive. It walked like it was simply following an old path. It had walked 1,000 times before. Another drone captured a creature moving through a desert canyon. Its body blended with the stone, almost looking like part of the mountain come to life. It moved with surprising calmness, never attacking anything, never changing direction. And in the north, the creature trapped beneath ice for ages finally pushed upward, cracking the frozen layer like glass. The shape rose slowly, steam rising from its surface due to the sudden touch of open air. It didn't roar. It didn't lash out. It simply turned south and began its journey. Each creature moved toward the same quiet valley. The world watched in disbelief. Helena was not surprised. She had been expecting this moment. She told the director the signal wasn't only a warning. It carried instructions. These creatures aren't random defenders. They were created with purpose, built by ancient forces to fight something humans have never faced. Something like what? The director asked. Helena looked at the map, showing all the creatures converging on one point. Something that destroyed the world we saw in the hologram. The director felt his throat tighten. And they're preparing for it? They're preparing, Helena said softly. And Earth is their home. They're not going to let anything destroy it. Word of the gathering began to spread across global news. Millions of people watched live broadcasts as these ancient giants approached the valley. Some cried. Others prayed. Many asked questions no one could answer. As the first creature finally reached the valley, the ground shifted slightly under its weight. It stood still for a moment, facing the horizon as though waiting for the others. Soon another creature arrived. Then another. They stood in a wide circle, silent and enormous, their presence shaking the air itself. From miles away, cameras recorded everything. The world watched these giants gather like old warriors coming together after centuries. Helena watched too, her heart full of both fear and awe. They're not here to destroy us, she whispered. They're here to protect the planet. The creatures were assembling according to a plan older than humanity itself, a plan written into their instincts, activated by a cry for help from a dying world across the stars. Somewhere in the universe, something dangerous was approaching, and Earth's ancient guardians were ready to face it. The days after the Titans gathered in the desert felt strangely calm, but no one on Earth could enjoy that calmness. It felt like the silence before a huge storm. People around the world were glued to their screens, waiting for any update. Some hoped everything was over, while others felt a quiet fear growing inside them, as if something much bigger was coming. Even the air felt different, heavy in a way that couldn't be explained. The research teams watching the outer parts of the solar system kept noticing unusual shadows on their screens. At first, they thought it was just faulty equipment or dust on the lenses. But the shadows kept growing. They weren't just random shapes. They moved with purpose. Something large was entering the solar system from a place where no spacecraft or asteroid should come from. The strange part was how the shapes looked like they were eating the light around them. Distant stars dimmed when the shadows passed in front of them, almost as if the darkness had a hunger of its own. At the same time, Earth communication networks started acting up. Satellites flickered, lost contact, and shut down one by one. It wasn't because they were being destroyed, but because something was blocking their signals. It almost felt like the universe was quietly closing its doors around. Earth thought the world governments held emergency meetings every hour. Scientists tried to explain what was going on, but even they were confused. The shadows seemed alive, but didn't match anything humans had seen before. They weren't ships or creatures in the usual sense. They moved like smoke, but behaved like predators. They traveled fast, faster than any human-made object could. And they were coming closer. In the quiet desert where the Titans had gathered, the atmosphere changed. The ground trembled, not with violence, but with a strange rhythm, as if the Titans felt something approaching long before humans could confirm it. They lifted their heads toward the sky, each of them sensing the same thing. They weren't afraid. They were preparing. A scientist at the desert site looked at the Titans with a mix of awe and concern. She had been studying their movements for days and had finally noticed a pattern. Their steps, their positioning, even the sounds they made, all of it matched the rhythm hidden inside the alien distress signal that Earth received earlier. It was like the Titans knew exactly what they had to do, as if this moment was something they had been created for. The signal from the alien probe finally started making sense, too. After long hours of decoding, the researchers understood what the last fragments meant. It wasn't just a warning. It was a memory, a story, told in light and sound. The aliens who sent the call for help had once lived peaceful lives. They had cities floating in the sky, oceans filled with glowing plants, and a night sky filled with friendly signals from neighboring worlds. But one day, something entered their solar system, something that consumed energy, light, and life. The aliens tried to fight, but their weapons did nothing. Their strongest cities vanished without a sound. They realized they couldn't win. So, instead of fighting, they created beacons and sent them across nearby star systems in the hope that some world somewhere had the strength they didn't. Earth was one of the worlds that received that cry for help millions of years ago. And Earth responded not through humans, but through the Titans buried deep inside its oceans and mountains. The creatures had been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for the day the same danger would come again. The scientists now understood the truth. The Titans weren't a threat. They were guardians created by the ancient Earth ecosystem to protect the planet from visitors, like the ones now entering the solar system. But understanding didn't remove the fear of what was coming. No one knew if the Titans were strong enough to defend the planet again. News channels tried to calm people, but it didn't help much. People could see the fear in the faces of world leaders. Travelers rushed home. Families gathered. People stood outside at night, staring at the sky, searching for answers in the darkness. Even those who didn't believe in anything mysterious had to admit something unnatural was happening. When the first shadow crossed the edge of the solar system, it was seen by several observatories at once. The object didn't look solid. It twisted and stretched like a living cloud. It passed near one of Earth's oldest satellites, and the satellite went offline instantly. Not destroyed, just stopped. Like something drained the energy from it in one breath. Simultaneously, Earth's oceans reacted. Waves grew strong without any wind. The deep-sea sensors picked up sudden movements. Something huge woke up beneath the water. One of the ocean titans began rising from the depths, sending a quiet roar that trembled through the water. It wasn't angry or wild. It was calling the others, like a leader giving instructions. On land, the mountain titan shifted its body and started moving west, heading toward the open sky. Trees shook and birds flew out of its path. People in nearby towns watched the gigantic shadow pass and felt a strange combination of fear and respect. The creature didn't attack anything. It simply moved with determination, as if it had a mission dot in the desert. The winged titan raised its wings, which covered a massive part of the sky. Dust storms swirled around it, but it kept its focus upward. Its glowing eyes followed the shadows approaching from space. It looked ready, not excited. Not scared, just ready. The scientists monitoring everything realized the Titans were taking positions around the planet. Each one moved to a place that matched the old battle pattern encoded in the alien message. They were forming Earth's first and only defense line, and something happened that no one expected. A small bright object entered Earth's orbit. It wasn't a shadow. It was glowing softly, almost like a lantern floating in the sky. When the scientists enhanced the image, they realized it was another alien probe. But this one wasn't sending a distress call. It was sending a calm, steady light. A message of guidance. The researchers decoded it quickly. It wasn't a warning. It was a map showing weak points in the shadows. The aliens, even in their final days, had left instructions for any world that answered their call. They hadn't survived, but they had left behind one last gift: knowledge. The shadows reached the orbit of Jupiter next. Cameras watched helplessly as the planet's storms changed shape, as if the massive world was reacting to the presence of something unnatural. But the shadows didn't attack the planet. They were looking for energy. They absorbed lightning, heat, and magnetic currents. They were growing stronger. Soon. They turned toward Earth. When the shadows approached Earth's moon, the Titans reacted instantly. The ocean titan roared toward the sky. The winged titan launched itself upward with a single flap that shook the desert. The mountain titan dug its massive limbs into the ground, grounding itself for a surge of power. People on Earth watched in disbelief as streaks of light shot into the sky, signals from the Titans communicating silently. It wasn't language. It was instinct and energy, passed between them like a pulse. They were calling each other into formation. The first clash between the shadows and the Titans happened far above Earth's atmosphere. People saw it only as faint flashes of light. The shadows swept through the sky like dark waves, while the Titans met them with bursts of energy that humans couldn't fully see or understand. The world didn't shake, but people felt a pressure in their chests, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The battle wasn't loud. It wasn't violent in a traditional sense. It felt like watching two forces of nature collide: light pushing against darkness, strength pushing against hunger. The shadows tried to wrap around the winged titan, but the creature spun through them, cutting the dark mist apart. The ocean titan sent bright pulses upward that made the shadows stumble. The mountain titan's energy bursts shot into the air like silent fireworks. Even so, not all shadows were pushed back. Some slipped past the Titans and moved toward Earth's upper atmosphere. The scientists panicked when they saw this. If even one shadow reached the ground, it could drain entire regions of energy. But before the shadows could descend, the glowing alien probe reacted. It released a bright flash, pointing out the shadow's weakest areas one last time. The Titans understood instantly. The ocean titan extended its glowing limbs and formed a massive wave of energy. The winged titan flew upward with astonishing speed and struck the shadows from behind. And the mountain titan sent one final surge that met the shadows in the middle. The shadows hesitated. Then, slowly, they retreated back into the darkness of space, folding into themselves like smoke carried away by wind. The Titans floated in orbit for a short moment, their bodies glowing softly. They didn't celebrate. They simply looked toward the dark edge of the solar system, making sure nothing else was coming. The threat wasn't fully gone. Everyone knew it. The shadows would return someday. But for now, Earth had survived. The Titans slowly returned to the planet, each disappearing into the places they came, from the ocean floor, the mountains, the silent desert sky. Humans watched them with a new understanding. They weren't creatures to fear. They were protectors who answered a call older than human history. The alien probe faded away quietly, its final light blinking like a farewell, and down on Earth, people took a deep breath, knowing the world had changed forever. For a long moment after the shadows vanished into the far darkness of space, the entire world felt strangely quiet. People stepped outside their homes, looked up at the calm sky, and tried to understand what had just happened. There were no sounds of alarms anymore, no emergency broadcasts, no scientists shouting updates every minute. The planet seemed to pause, almost as if it was taking a slow breath of relief. But the relief came mixed with confusion. No one fully understood what the Titans had sacrificed up there in the sky. Only a few scientists knew the truth, that the creatures had faced something so powerful that the world did not yet have the words for it. People only saw a few faint lights from far away, but those lights marked the moment Earth's guardians had risked everything to protect life. In the desert, the research team waited for the winged Titan to return. Hours passed, and nothing moved in the sky. The team members talked quietly among themselves, wondering if the creature had survived. One of them, an older scientist who had spent years studying ancient Earth records, said softly, "Sometimes protectors do not come back the same way they left." His voice carried a sadness, but also pride. At last, a shadow formed high above the clouds. The giant creature descended slowly, as if tired. Its wings folded carefully, and it settled on the same rocky ground where it had stood before the battle. It did not roar or make any dramatic gesture. It simply lowered its head for a moment, almost like a nod, before turning toward its hidden resting place. The scientists stepped back, giving it respectful space. They could sense that the Titan had done something extraordinary, and that it needed peace not far across the world. In the deep ocean, the sea Titan returned to its ancient sanctuary. The waves around it glowed faintly for a moment, lighting up the dark water, then faded to silence. Fishermen in nearby boats didn't know what they had witnessed. All they knew was that something enormous had passed beneath them, but it moved gently, without harming anything. It felt like the ocean was saying goodbye to an old guardian returning home. The mountain Titan also came back quietly. It stepped into its old cavern system, where its huge form blended with the stone around it. A team of researchers who had been monitoring its path stood at a safe distance. One of them whispered, "It's like watching a piece of Earth return to its place." And truly, the mountain Titan looked like part of the land itself, steady, loyal, and patient. Once all the Titans had disappeared from human sight, a strange emptiness settled over Earth. The world was safe, but it had been changed. People who had never believed in anything extraordinary suddenly found themselves wondering about the ancient history of Earth, about the creatures that had once walked, flown, and swam long before humans existed. Governments held worldwide meetings again, but now the tone was different. Instead of discussing fear or danger, they discussed responsibility. Most leaders understood the Titans had not been enemies. They had saved the planet. But some leaders were still worried. They asked whether the Titans might return later in unpredictable ways. Others said the creatures needed to be monitored. A few even suggested that the Titans should be controlled, although no one explained how humans could possibly control something older and wiser than humanity itself. However, spoke with more clarity. They said the Titans had shown no harm toward humans, and they believed the creatures acted only to protect life on Earth. They also explained that the alien distress signal revealed the truth. The Titans were part of Earth's ancient natural defense system. They were guardians, not threats. One scientist stepped forward during a broadcast and said something that touched people worldwide. "These beings fought for us without asking anything in return. They deserve trust, not fear." That message spread quickly across social media. People created art, stories, animations, and songs inspired by the Titans. The world began to see these creatures with gratitude and respect. Children drew pictures of them saving Earth. Even older people, who had watched the sky in fear just days earlier, now felt a quiet appreciation for the protectors they might never see again. But even as people tried to move on, something still lingered in the minds of scientists who understood the last part of the alien probe's message. Late one night, the main research team gathered in a dimly lit control room. The screens were quiet, the machines humming softly. On one of those screens was the alien signal now fully decoded. The final lines glowed in a soft blue light, as if they carried emotion, even across endless years. The message said that Earth was now a sanctuary. The Titans were meant to guard this world, not only for Earth's sake, but for the sake of other civilizations that might still be out there somewhere, struggling, hiding, or needing help. The aliens who had vanished long ago had seen something in Earth, something worth protecting. This realization filled the room with a strange mix of honor and responsibility. If Earth was a sanctuary, then the people living on it had a role to play too. The Titans had done their part. Now it was time for humans to do theirs, by taking care of the planet, respecting life, and preparing for a future where other worlds might call for help. One researcher leaned back in her chair and said quietly, "Maybe we're not alone in this universe. But maybe that's not something to fear. Maybe it's something to protect." Outside the research base, the sky was clear. The stars looked brighter than usual, as if thankful. People across the world went back to their daily lives, but with a new sense of unity. Some planted trees, feeling connected to Earth in a new way. Others volunteered in their communities. Some just spent more time with loved ones, grateful to have another day. Though the shadows had left, no one forgot that they might return someday. The Titans knew it too, wherever they were resting. They were ancient beings, and their instincts ran deeper than words. They rested silently, waiting for the moment when the planet would need them again. And life continued, as it always had. Birds still sang in the morning. The ocean still touched the sand with its soft waves. The mountains still caught sunlight on their peaks. The world looked the same on the surface, but deep inside, something had shifted. Earth had become part of a much bigger story, one that stretched far beyond the sky. One evening, months after the Titans went silent, a young boy stood outside his home, staring up at the stars. He had heard the stories from the news and from his parents. He didn't understand everything, but he felt something important had happened. As he watched the night sky, he asked softly, "Are we going to be okay?" His father looked up too, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "We have protectors," he said, "and we have each other. That's enough." The boy smiled a little, feeling comforted. In the quiet night, no strange shadows appeared. No alarm sounded. Just the calm sound of the wind and the peaceful glow of stars that had watched over Earth for billions of years. But somewhere far away, beyond the reach of telescopes, a faint signal traveled through space. It didn't sound like fear this time. It sounded like hope-soft, almost like a whisper. Another world calling out, wondering if someone out there could hear them dot deep beneath Earth's surface. In a cavern filled with ancient stone, the mountain titan opened its eyes for a brief moment. The gentle hum of the signal reached it like a memory. It didn't move or rise. It only listened, as if acknowledging the call. The signal faded into the stars, traveling toward Earth slowly, but surely. No one on the planet heard it yet. No one saw it coming, but the Titans did, and Earth, once again, was not alone.